Hey everyone, I wanted to do a quick video. This one is going to be on like a theory of mine, like my idea of why there is so much anti-gay propaganda, so much potential violence happening to gay people, or just LGBTQ people in this country, why there are laws in Florida, the Don't Say Gay bill, the drag queens in Texas, that it was a drag queen party for kids that was set up, and how all these like far right news outlets are taking it all out of context and manipulating it to fit their agenda that, gay people are grooming people, and that's why there's so many gay people right now. So my theory is, I think I was discussing this with my mother actually, and it just kind of came out of me, and I realized, I was like, this is exactly what I think it is. So at my second job that I work at now, I work with a lot of young people, and I'm almost 40, and I feel like for my age group I was very progressive. So people in my age group don't understand trans. A lot of them don't. Like millennial up have a pretty difficult time understanding trans people. I mean, so the young people I work with, they are between, some of them are between like the ages of like 18 to like 25. There's a lot of them like that. And I just find it so fascinating that none of them really have, they don't waste their time on sexual identity or things like that, or anything like that, gender. They don't even bother with it. So the young people, what's happening is that they're transcending it, they're moving past it. So multiple like guys I work with, and some of them are in like, they're like buff little things that live in, they're in like frat houses and stuff like that. Several of them that I've spoken to, like they'll mention how like this guy's hot, but then they'll talk about their girlfriend, and they'll just casually say this stuff like and it doesn't matter to them because they don't identify as gay or straight or bi or whatever it is. What happens is that they just simply find, if they're attracted to someone, they date them. If they're not, they're not. And body shaming or compartmentalizing people and saying, oh, I only date men and manly men, or I only date women and, specifically this type of woman, or whatever it is, none of that's really matters. The trying to identify and put yourself in a category so that you can stand up and shout your identity to the world is kind of dying off. It's becoming a very much, they don't waste their time on gender identity. They don't waste their time on sexuality, mostly sexuality. I think gender identity is a very it's still slightly fragile. I think people don't care that people are trans, but it's also one of those subjects where being trans does include gender dysphoria, and so a lot of them, they're not too like intellectually aware of the details that go into it, but it doesn't matter to them. They would never mock someone who's trans. They would never do anything like that. And this is broad strokes of the young generation, the one that's pretty up and coming now. And they are the future. And so for me, as someone I felt like was incredibly progressive my whole life, up until, probably recently, I'm starting to like level out and get stuck in my ways. It's very interesting to hear their perspectives, and I really quite enjoy it. So that being said, why is it that these far right conservative people are so anti-trans? I mean, in Texas, they're knocking on parents' doors and asking the children if their parents have talked to them about gender identity or transitioning or anything like that, and they will arrest the parents for child abuse, and that is absurd. So in Texas they had a birthday party for all these kids, and they hired drag queens, and the reason why is like RuPaul's Drag Race is quite popular. Many people see drag queens, and to be honest, I think of drag queens, and it can be offensive to drag queens in a way, but I think of them kind of like clowns. They're like modern day clowns. They are entertainers. They put themselves out there. It's funny, sometimes it's sad. It's one of these things where drag queens are modern day clowns. As funny as that is, but it's true. And so there was a kids' party. They rented out a building, and they had drag queens playing with the kids and hanging out, and all these far-right people. So they even catered with ice cream. And as an ice cream company, and they had neon signs that they bring with them whenever they cater. And the slogan for the company is like, it's not going to lick itself. So of course Republicans take this way out of context, and they say, look at these signs and these children. They even used some like image that wasn't even from the party saying that this was a drag queen, but it actually was just some woman that was dressed up extravagant and had some kid putting dollar bills in her like bathing suit or underwear, whatever it was. And it was like rednecks joking about it. Well, they took it out of context and said, look, they're even like having children put dollar bills into, drag queens' hands. There was no money at this event. There was no images like that. None of the children gave the drag queens money. They were paid for by the event beforehand. So you can see how people take things out of context to fit their agenda. This is something that both the liberals and the Republicans do. They'll take things out of context to fit their agenda. And in this situation, when it comes to why are they reacting so incredibly like aggressive with gay people, with trans people, and they see gay people as same as trans. It's just, you could say the LGBTQ thing. They're against it because there are so many LGBTQ people. There are so many coming out. There's so many bi people. There's so many gay people. There's so many cross-dressers. There's trans women. There's trans men. There's non-binary. And there's so many of them that these people, it's all around them. It's happening in our world, and the young people don't care because they don't need other people to approve of what they're doing. They're just doing what they want to do, which is quite an amazing thing, and I believe it is something to be quite proud of as a generation. And so I believe they think in their minds, and this is like an old mentality, like 1960s, maybe 1970s. What was her name? The woman who had the pie shoved in her face by a gay guy because she was so anti. She said that we should ship all. She was deeply religious, big into the Republican Party. She said that we should ship all the gays to an island and let them die off there, and then there won't be any more gays. Because to them, they don't believe gay people are natural. They don't believe that it happens naturally. So now you have this updated version. So now all these people are seeing their nephews and their nieces and all these people transitioning and family members close to them, the neighbors next door, the children that are all gay and they're so proud to be gay and they don't care and they don't even identify as gay. They just identify as whatever. They just want to date this person that they just met. They don't care. And they don't think there's anything unusual with being gay. But these older generations, the parents, the millennial up, are seeing it as though, what's happening to our children? What's happening to them? Why are they all LGBTQ? And what they don't realize is that they always were. It just so happens now they can come out and not even come out. They don't even feel shame at all because it's so common that there's nothing unusual about it. And to me, that is the thing that makes it so beautiful. But they see that as a huge threat. So they think grooming. They think that these children are being groomed by LGBTQ people in schools. They're telling them that you should be gay. They have drag queens at birthday parties grooming them to be transsexuals. And so they have fear. And it's not surprising. I mean, to be honest, all these very masculine Republican conservative people with all their guns are so afraid of everything. They are full of fear, and fear is a weakness. To quote Dune, fear is the mind killer. But it's one of those things where being fearful is a weakness, and they are terrified. And the reason that they are terrified is because they have probably had feelings about the same sex, or they've probably had feelings about cross-dressing, or it makes them have to question themselves. And when something like that happens, people can respond in either way and go, wow, this is an impressive lesson. This is something about myself that I never saw coming. How cool is that? I can still surprise myself. So that's like how I try to respond to things that sometimes make me see myself in a different light. But it just so happens that intelligent evolution and intellectual evolution is just not happening with these people. So they refuse to think that this is a natural occurrence. They believe that people are forced to be gay, and they're terrified. They're fearful. And whenever people lash out, it's because they see a little bit of themselves in these people, or maybe their happiness is not as authentic as they thought. And so now they see people actually being happy, and also not just being happy, but not being concerned about whether or not this is right or wrong as far as their sexuality and gender goes. And that thoroughly freaks them out. I mean, It's the same thing with me. I find it quite interesting with my, this is going into personal life stuff, and I've made a couple of posts about this, but being a trans woman, and this new step that I've taken where I'm working out and I'm gaining a lot of muscle and I'm getting quite buff and tone, it scares people, but it only scares specific people. And it's always the same type of person. It's always a very insecure person. So, and that's what scared people when I first transitioned. It was always very insecure women. So like say a cis woman ran into me and they would find out that I was trans. And just happens that I'm prettier than they are, stereotypically prettier. I'm thinner, I can wear this dress, it looks better, I have confidence in myself. That is fear. So what happens is they begin to fear me and then they begin to hate me. And it's seen as weakness and then they lash out. So when it comes to my like bodybuilding and weightlifting stuff, I was finding myself, there was multiple angles people were coming at where they were insulting me, saying that I look like a man and that why would I do that, and you looked better before when you were just thin and basic and, just simple. I didn't stand out too much. I wasn't too confident in myself. So now that I'm getting older and I don't really care about my transition or my gender identity anymore, and I'm going down the fitness path, I'm really enjoying it. But it is a very similar effect because like there's guys that are obviously on my social media and my page, and they're always the ones that respond, and it's because they probably don't work out. Like I couldn't date a man smaller than me. I wouldn't date a man smaller than me, muscle wise. I wouldn't date a man that doesn't work out. And the reason why is just because I'm not interested in someone that's not interested in the same things I am. And these are very big things. And so, like, for example, the guy that I'm sleeping with just so happens to be 6'5" and 255 pounds, solid muscle. He's a power lifter, a bodybuilder, and he is an absolute monster. I mean, he squats 650 pounds, and he made fun of me and said, "What do you do? Spin classes and yoga?" And I'm like, "Excuse me?" So I'm small and I'm petite and I'm dainty when I stand next to this guy. And so the only people, and he's not threatened by me at all. He's not even slightly concerned that I have muscle. He just thinks, "Wow, she's in shape. That's it. That's it. She takes care of her body," and that's all he thinks. But other people that don't do the stuff, they see me and then they look at themselves and then they react viscerally. Being thin and basic and being, fitting into society. I mean, I could throw Jesus in there if I wanted to. I could start like going down a path of complete fake, simple, stupid, basic white woman, and I could just basically make shit tons of money. I mean, if I wanted to be rich, I could do it quite easily. And that's the thing that people find fascinating, I think, about my decisions I make, is that they're like, well, she could easily just be wealthy and she could easily do whatever, all this stuff, but I choose deliberately not to go down that path. Because if this is my life, I don't want to be around a bunch of basic ass assholes. Like, so I'm looking for intellectual intelligence and like someone who's able to decipher and figure things out and not judge people on because they are insecure, but judging people based on their action. And I judge people based on action, not on their like their views and opinions or anything. I look, I'm like, isn't this so stupid what they're doing? And then they get offended, they get upset, because what it boils down to is why are they saying these things? Why are they doing these things? And then it starts to bounce back on them, and you realize it's because they're not as confident as they think they are. They're not as secure in who they think they are. So they have to try and lash out at someone. And I was getting just a little insecure about having muscle. I was like, oh geez, have I gone too far? Am I like She-Hulk? And then I realized that it's other people's weakness. And it's very similar to these don't say gay bills and don't support your child that's having gender dysphoria and all this stuff. It's because they are fearful that they themselves don't know who they are. And the scary thing is, more than likely, they don't know who they are. And all these conservative states where they're making all of these laws, they're all the same states where people are caught in the most sketchy ass situation. I mean, it's always these Republicans caught in the bathroom doing the nastiest shit, I mean, like nasty shit. It's always them. And it's because they don't like who they are and they need others to support their viewpoint so they can bury that feeling deep down inside them and they don't have to deal with it. But every now and then it overflows and they go and have sex with a man in a bathroom somewhere, and it's some Republican politician that's like in the bathroom with like 10 other guys, and they get busted or they get caught, and then they just pretend they're like, oh no, I was going through a hard time, or Satan came into my life, I was evil ways, I've now repented. It's like and it's sad. At the end of the day, it's so incredibly sad that the people that don't have a spine are always the ones who lash out the most. And I've realized, even from other trans women on YouTube and stuff like that, I mean, I don't need anyone else to validate me. And I'm talking about other trans vloggers that have like gone out of their way to try and take my work out of context to gain support on their viewpoint. I'm talking about these people. And whenever you really just kind of listen to what they're saying, you can clearly tell they are not secure with themselves. They don't even, they're dating people that they probably don't know if whether or not they support them as being a woman or not. They have family members that obviously don't support them being women. And so when they see me like basically giving the middle finger to everyone, like, fuck you, if you don't accept me, then get the fuck out of my life. I don't need you. It's my life. I don't need the support of others to make me feel secure about myself. I can do that for myself. And that's the thing, is that it's difficult. And so for me, I have to have understanding that when other people respond in such a cruel way, or they do these things like that riot white supremacy group that was going to show up at the gay pride parade, and with bombs and Kevlar vests and shit like that, they are fearful. They are so afraid of who they are that they have to go out and demonize other people that are just living their lives, just doing their thing. And naturally, we are going to get so many more trans people. Naturally, we're going to get so many more gay people. And it's not even gay, trans. It's that people are just going to be dating the same sex. They're going to be dating whatever gender. It doesn't even matter. And that scares the crap out of people that have no idea who they are. We're in a very interesting time in our lives. So, but people, like, I had someone close to me in my family saying, oh, this is because of Trump. And I'm like, no, no, no. Trump is a side effect of them. He simply capitalized on them. He knew what was happening and he capitalized on it. Anyway, I'm going to go see what my dog has to yell about. Y'all have a great day. Bye.